a wonderful world. Keep my order service here too, so it's within line after the fact. Now, okay. You can hear me? Yeah. If I, yay, score! What a wonderful world! Now I have a confession to make. I always get so excited when I'm doing a presentation that I get so much information that it's crazy, and it would be like a month of lectures. So even today, after the first edit, I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and print this out. I was going to do that this morning and just say, I'm just going to, every other line, take it out, take it out. And then all of a sudden I went in to look at it and see the print preview, and there was nothing. It was blank. I was not happy. But I just said, it's all good. It's all good. I know the basics, so if I don't have some of the specifics, that's okay. I called my Hewlett-Packard Smart friend. Oh, I'm really sorry, but we have all of our systems down that do diagnostic and our client contacts, and so they can't go and do, and I'm like, really? But don't worry, we should have it all together within 48 hours. I said, that's really not going to help me. So, ironically, as he was giving me all these excuses, and 2 or 3 minutes later, he said the same thing, but don't you worry. Well, maybe 24 hours we can have it for you. I said, thanks, but that's not going to help me in this situation. But while he's talking, I'm going in and saying, okay, oh, I see something that says recovery. Okay, I am so low tech, it's ridiculous. So it was just God telling me, push here, push there. And all of a sudden, before I hung up with him, poof, they showed up. So I have all the pages, but they didn't get that last edit. And time just races. So I'm going to try, I'm not going to go into a lot of dates and those kind of things. Let's just talk story a little bit. First, I want to ask you, you heard from my introduction, I was a Maui Religious Science Center pastor. And I know after last week's service, and they announced I was speaking, I had 3 lovely ladies come up and say, oh, I had this connection with religious science, or I love reading Ernest Holmes, and I just wondered, of our group that's here today, do any of you have any connection with or any info about religious science? Not a whole lot. Okay. Oh, going way back. Yes. Was she the best? Yeah, I remember her. Southern California, San Diego. Anyway, okay, that just helps me. And so what I'm going to do is just start. Well, actually, when Rev Tony and I were first talking about this morning, I said, is there anything, I said I could talk about this or this or this, and is there anything particular you would have an interest in? And he said, because I'd already been espousing how unity had blessed me greatly along my spiritual path and continues to. And he said, I don't think many of our people know much about science of mind. And a lot of our people don't know much about older unity, some of the basics, or metaphysics. And he said, maybe you could just say a little something, include a little something about how they may be similar, or how they may be different. And I thought, well, that sounds like an easy thing to do. And so that's a question I get often. And I don't know if you've ever had that thought yourself. Well, what's the difference if you've heard of religious science? The main question is it Christian Science or is it Scientology? That's what most people have come up. It's neither of those, although the teachings of Mary Baker Eddy that founded Christian Science, and she was also a teacher of Emma Curtis Hopkins, who became later in her life referred to as the teacher of teachers and a great mystic. They did bring some teachings down from, Mary Baker Eddy. Nothing to do with Scientology. That's a whole other bag. But what I do know we have in common is that we believe in the power of the creative mind. We believe that we are co-creators with our universe. We believe that when we speak our word, now it can't just be passive. We have to mean it. We have to trust and believe that this can happen for us. That's the magic potion, because that's what sets it to work in the creative juices of God's way of getting things done. And unity, I know, again, believing in affirmative prayer, stating that which you want. So we do have those commonalities, and I'm going to share just a little bit of that. So, one more question. This is about unity. Has anyone here ever been to Unity Village? Oh, yes, a few of you. On retreat or for classes? Okay. You know the magic of Unity Village. Now, I have to say, I realized it's the 90s the last time I was at Unity Village. That's what happens when you get so old. But it was, for me, magic. I was there first for a retreat with a new friend I'd met at the Unity Church in Southern California. I said, did you ever go to Unity Village? You want to go? We went for a Rose Festival. It was magic. We went back 3 months later for 2 weeks of classes. She has now been the Unity Minister of the San Leandro, California Church for like 25 years. But it was the very first thing. Yes?
I'm from San Leandro.
Diana McDaniel. You're from San Leandro?
Unity. And Castro Valley. So
Oh,
I know.
you know Diana McDaniel?
Yes.
Okay. I love it. Because the first thing I asked Tony...
Sillamar twice with the Unity in the 80s.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, while my topic this morning is unity and religious science, a dynamic duo, I'm going to start with another dynamic duo. And that's the founders of your movement here, the founders of Unity, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And actually, this was a surprise to me. I learned that Myrtle didn't come into the world as Myrtle. She came in as Mary Carolyn. But she adopted the name Myrtle as a child and used it for the rest of her life. And they were both born in the mid-19th century. They both had inquiring minds, and they liked reading and studying and conversationally getting involved. Myrtle had wanted, when she grew up, she wanted to be a teacher so she could help people have a better life. As a child, she had that desire. She did wind up going through, getting a teacher's credential. She went to Texas to teach. Other things took Charles to Texas, and they met there at some of these study and conversation groups about philosophy, about spirituality, and which was, transcendentalism, and these things that were very hot topics of the time. So they actually met in 1881, and they moved to Kansas City, Missouri. And, of course, that's where it all began for Unity. Now, Myrtle had suffered from tuberculosis as a child and had been very, very ill, and it had plagued her throughout her life. And after they had been married, and after they'd been in Kansas City a while, she started getting sicker and sicker again. And she had had this belief system that this tuberculosis came down genetically. It was inherited because she had family members that had had it. So she was under the impression it was just never going to get any better. However, inquiring minds that they had, they went to a series of lectures offered by a Dr. Eugene B. Weeks. He had been a student of Mary Baker Eddy, Christian Science, but had left there to follow and align with the new college that Emma Curtis Hopkins, mysticism, had started. So they were so impressed with her talk, Myrtle especially, with his presentations. He sort of brought the idea of affirmative, declarative prayer to them. So she said one phrase got her attention, and it made her think that divine healing may be possible. And she started that as a practice of her constant prayer. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. That's simple. But it was affirmative, I am a child of God. And it also carried a denial. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness. And she stayed with that tenaciously. And she was a very prayerful woman anyway. And within a couple of years, she was showing great improvement, and she just continued to get better. Well, Charles hadn't really been too interested in any of this until she started getting really better. And he thought, well, maybe there's something to this. He had had an injury as a young man, or a young boy, and injured a hip, dislocated it. And it left one leg, as they use the term, withered. And they say it was 3.5 inches shorter than the other leg, and it called for him being in a brace and using crutches or a cane. So he decided, I'm going to give this a try. Finally, that was a good thing. And he, too, began to show improvement and heal to the point where it said the balance and the length of his legs got very minimal to where he just walked with a slight limp. Now, that's without the crutches or the brace, I think, or the cane. So it was a done deal for him. He was convinced. And Myrtle was so excited about her healing. Of course, she was saying, we've got to share this. She was a giver. We've got to share this. And they taught, she had meetings. People she knew that were in need of healing, she would work with them for healing. And he would be involved too. And so Myrtle wrote this quote, which I think is kind of interesting. Sometimes we pray to God outside of ourselves. It is the God in the midst of us that frees and heals. It is the God in the midst of us. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about that spirit that is all present within us. And when we say, I am God in expression. God isn't, she had a longer quote, but it essentially said, God isn't out there. Well, God's out there, but no more than God is every single place else and within here. So Ernest Holmes even wrote in his poem, The Voice Celestial, very mystical poem in his later years, he wrote with his brother, that there isn't a further away, there isn't a deeper than, higher than, lower than. There isn't a separation. It's all one. And usually it takes us later in our studies, as we build and build, when we can finally get to that place where we say, it's all right here. I can use it all. It's here, begging to be used by me. What do I want? How do I want to be the highest expression of me? How can I serve? How can I help? How can I heal? It just takes that commitment and that remembering of who we really are. The other comment she made in this vein was, prayer is an exercise to change our thought habits and our living habits that we may set up a new and better activity. Set it up the way we want it to be, in accord with the divine law, rather than with the suggestions we have received from various sources. I think she's kind of saying, don't listen to everybody else. You've got this. It's you and God. And there will always be naysayers or doubters, and that's okay. They're doing their thing. You get to stand true to yours. So they did continue speaking, healing, praying. They eventually published magazines, started one for children, and of course for adults. They fostered the growth of the Society of Practical Christianity, which they incorporated as their first Unity Church in 1903. I found that date interesting because that was the year my father was born. And from the beginning, they continued to grow in faith. They grew in service. They grew as this whole education and healing existence that became Unity, which Charles picked the name out, Unity, and they incorporated that first Unity Church in 1903. So that is when it officially became Unity. And they shared these metaphysical philosophies with centers worldwide. Their popularity grew very quickly. Most people say that Unity's prayer ministry is the absolute backbone, the breath and pulse of all of Unity's endeavors. And as many of you know now, they have Unity centers all over the world. They have massive education programs. And I still feel that essence of Myrtle in the giving, because it's about sharing. It's about, we've got something really good here. Let me tell you how it works. Really, try it. Try it, you'll like it. See how it works. Oh, and I had some images which I'm forgetting about. How do I get this up? My overheads?
You point to me.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, that's good. I forgot. That was going to be like for meditation. And so then if you flip, the next one's probably the spirit of aloha. We covered that, right? Thank you for doing that for me. And this, we have Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. I had never seen this image before of them, this lovely outside image. I scrolled through many, many, and I just loved it. I thought it was just a lovely picture that kind of captured their dignity, their humility, their confidence in what they do. And next, Unity Village should be, Unity Village. Tony shared a nice picture of us with us a few weeks ago. And that's the tower. And Unity Village has grown by leaps and bounds. When I started reading about it, they've done so much since I was there. I don't know that I'd recognize the place, except for perhaps the tower. But the final and what I think is maybe the most important, well, one of the most important contributions, and certainly one of the greatest gifts, is that they started from just meeting in their home and Myrtle sharing her healing and helping others, to spreading that, and to, when they did their first issue of their magazine, they said, and we will support you in prayer if you write to us here. And they started this, what became the Society of Silent Unity. First, I think it was called Of Prayer, and then they changed it to Silent Unity once they settled in there. But that began, of course, with the old days when you actually wrote something with pen and paper, put it in an envelope with a stamp. Now, Unity Village, though, for as long as I've known about Unity Village, they have the Silent Unity and the prayer tower there. And they have phones that are available 24/7, any minute of the day or night that you're in need. There's a number that you can call, a toll-free number. Someone will answer the phone. You don't get put on hold. I've never heard of anyone getting put on hold. Someone will answer the phone that is kind, that is understanding, and they will listen to your concern. They will listen to your pain, what's on your heart. What do you need some support with? Or maybe it's something good that's coming up and you just want an extra boost of prayer power to settle the deal. And that is available constantly. And I think that's just an amazing testament, again, to her decision, that her intention and her desire from the time she was young was to teach and to help people have better lives. So, next picture, and of course they're international, as you know. It's a huge organization. Next picture, this is James Dillett Freeman. I like that picture of him too, thank you. James Dillett Freeman, is anyone familiar with James Dillett Freeman? Okay. James Dillett Freeman was, I want to tell you, he just passed. I don't mean just passed. When he passed, he was at the age of 91. And by the way, Charles and Myrtle didn't live quite that long, but they lived 70s and late 70s and 80s. But James lived till 91. He passed in 2003. And 70 of his years in this earth life, this earth experience, were working for Unity as a poet and author, as a minister, as a director of education and prayer, and as a spokesperson for Unity around the world. And he became known as the Poet Laureate of Unity. That is his official position. And he produced a vast body of work and is beloved by anyone who knew him and who reads his wonderful work. Some of you may know, I'm guessing most of you don't know, but James wrote the Prayer for Protection, which Unity churches all over the world state, usually at the end of their service in their circle. We have the great pleasure here, you've put it to music, so we sing it at the end of our service. Now, there are little cards. I don't know if you have them out here in your bookstore or anything. That one of the first things I got when I was there that have the prayer of protection on a little card like this. You can keep it in your wallet and use it whenever you feel you need it. And when I went to Unity Village and had the great pleasure of having some classes with him and then got to have some time with him one-on-one, some conversation time, I noticed that his name wasn't on there. I didn't know he had written that. And we talked about a few other things. And I had a project possibly with my friend who turned out to be the Unity minister. And we wanted to know if we could have his permission, what we would have to do to perhaps use that prayer for protection in this. And he said, oh, no, you don't need anything. He goes, I don't copyright anything. When I put it out there, it's for the whole world. Now, this is a whole different age. A lot of time has passed. That may not still be the case. But I remember thinking, again, it spoke to his generosity and his real pureness of his heart. Did you know that the prayer for protection was taken to the moon by Apollo 11 pilot Buzz Aldrin? Yeah, and it was left there in 1969. And further, another one of his poems, which I would read for you, but I can't get through it without crying, but it's called I Am There. And if you haven't read it, oh, James, where'd I put you? This book, I may need to have it for another day or two with a couple things, but this will be in your bookstore. It's on the library shelf. It's a tribute that Unity put together the year after James passed. And it's an amazing collection of his writings, of his personal stories, a lot of the stories behind the writings. And, you can just kind of see in his face, see in his eyes. He was a kind and gentle soul. When you were with him, or if he was teaching, or if you were with him one-on-one, he gave you his full attention. And he had this great sense of humor, and this, what I sort of took as a sense of deep peace, too. There was something about his eyes and his demeanor. He seemed like someone at deep peace. And yet he had many tragedies. He was devastated when his first wife was dying. And he went to the Unity Village prayer room to pray. And he told me he was sitting there, he couldn't even think of any words. He was beyond words. And as he sat there weeping, these words just started coming to him. And it was, I am there. And you know what? I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long, but I'm going to share just one piece with you maybe, just to give you a sense. Do you need me? I am there. You cannot see me, yet I am the light you see by. You cannot hear me, yet I speak through your voice. You cannot feel me, yet I am the power at work in your hands. I am at work, though you do not understand my ways. I am at work, though you do not recognize my works. And it goes on to say, because I think this is really important. Yes, I am there, yet I answer, yet I hear. When you need me, I am there. Even when you deny me, I am there. Even when you feel most alone, I am there. Even in your fears, I am there. Even in your pain, I am there. I'm there when you pray and when you do not pray. I am in you, and you are in me. And that's your teaser, that's your appetizer. You must read the whole thing. It's exquisite. And to bounce back to the prayer for protection, the other story he told me when I was chatting with him is how that came about. He had a neighbor couple that came to him and said, Jim, could you please write something for our son to take with him? Because he was leaving for deployment in World War II. So that was the genesis of the prayer for protection. And do any of you, well, we say it here. I don't know, do any of you ever use it elsewhere, at home, when you're traveling, when something comes up? It is potently powerful to bring a sense of peace and calm and faith over you. So yes, I Am There is also on the moon. Yes. 2 of his poems are on the moon. And I Am There was taken there in 1971 by an Apollo 15 astronaut, James Irwin. So he wrote about life and love and pain and loss and sorrow and flowers and children and beauty and questions. What is this life about? Exploring that all. And it's just no wonder that he was beloved for so very, very long and has been known as the Poet Laureate of Unity. Okay. Oh, gosh. I didn't even get to religious science. We're real quick going to put up a picture of Ernest Holmes. Okay? And let me say this. I'm going to skate on this real fast because I have a form in your packet that is a spiritual mind treatment form. So why don't you look for that while I tell you a minute about it. It's a white form, and it says My Spiritual Mind Treatment. The founder of religious science was Ernest Holmes. He was not quite a contemporary. He was born about almost 30 years later in the 19th century. But he was raised in a Christian household. They went to church every Sunday. He was the youngest of 9 boys. Can you imagine 9 boys? Wonderful parents, didn't have a lot of money. They kind of moved around a lot. Here's the piece I love about Ernest Holmes and his mom. His mother refused to let anyone teach fear to her boys. And so they'd go to church. But if that minister that day had gotten into hellfire and damnation and guilt and sin and all those things when they were coming home in the buggy or buckboard, whatever it was, she said, now all that stuff, you just forget about that. That's nothing. And do you know, I recall reading in other stories about Ernest Holmes that he said because of that gift from his mother, he didn't really understand what it felt like to be afraid. And even after he developed this whole way of praying, this whole way of being, this way of sharing this philosophy, which came from Christianity and the philosophers, especially Emerson's essays, the essay on self-reliance, also Thomas Troward, early metaphysicians. He just flew away. Okay, so it's going to come back. His mother, yes. So, as he put this together, and he was busy giving, he would have crowds of, he started at one theater in LA that had, 580 seats. And within weeks, he had to get a place that was over 1,000 seats. Then he had to go into one that was 2,000 seats. Just exponentially, this went on and on. There was a thirst for his wisdom and his sharing and his knowledge, and he was thirsty to share it. So, again, I see that as a similarity between the founders, between Science of Mind and Unity. They were people who discovered something amazing, crafted something that they found really worked for them, and they wanted to share it. They wanted to see as many people as could live better, have the opportunity to live better and happier lives. So, just wanted to mention that he did spend some time. He left school at 15, so he was really self-educated. But at 18, he moved to Boston, and he was there for about 7 years. And he actually saved some money working to go to the Powers Institute of Public Speaking in Boston to get ready to go on the Chautauqua circuit. And he actually got started doing that circuit with some speeches. But he wound up going out to California where his brother, who had a church, and a Congregationalist church, and his mother was out there. And he kind of liked Venice Beach, California, and he decided to stay there and help his brother. He did some shifting, but he did that. His brother, Fenwick Holmes, was also very instrumental in the base things of Science of Mind because they both studied prolifically all these truth teachers. Okay. What is Science of Mind? I'm just going to give you this little bit that Ernest Holmes says. He said, religious science, those terms are used interchangeably, religious science and Science of Mind, is a correlation of the laws of science, the opinions of philosophy, and the revelations of religion applied to human needs and the aspirations of man. Whew, that's a mouthful. So I'm not even going to break it down because what I'm going to do for you is tell you something about your mission statements and Science of Mind, and I'm not going to share them all. But do you know that in your program you have the Unity 5 basic principles, and it's on there every week as a reminder? Ernest Holmes set out 13 declaration of principles, but I wanted to just share with you if there's any question about them being similar. God is one power and creative all. That's the first one for unity. God is good and present everywhere. And Holmes begins with, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause, This one manifests itself in and through all creation. So both are talking about the one existent, ever-present God. We're spiritual beings, and the Spirit of God lives within each one of us. And essentially, science and mind, absolutely these same tenets. We all, in these two movements, we believe we create our experience through our beliefs and our claiming and our co-creating with the universe. We believe in the power of affirmative prayer. And as I said, Ernest Holmes set up a process called spiritual mind treatment with 5 steps of that. And we believe that just knowing these principles isn't enough. We have to live them. We have to be them. We have to know them. So, I'm very quickly going to take you to, we'll do this as the last thing, to go to your spiritual mind treatment form. This is because I wanted to send you home with a little piece of personalized science and mind prayer. So, the steps, I know the steps without looking, but I was going to look at the little form. You guys have your form. Okay, so just take a peek at the top. That gives you 2 simple quotes that Ernest Holmes said all the time and that we always associate with science and mind. One is, change your thinking, change your life. The other one is an affirmation that he used at the beginning of every broadcast he did when he had his radio program, when he had his television program. He always began with, there is one God, there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is my life now. So anytime you're feeling really down, isolated, don't know what the heck's going on, I suggest you just own that one. Try that one out. See how it feels. See if that brings you to a place of ownership of the God life that is you. So the first step in the steps of treatment is recognition. And I put simple ones down here. You can do them in the way that you want. But it's recognizing there's one spirit, one God, one presence and power in the universe and in my life. There's no duality. There's one creative force, whatever you call it. 2 is unification. That is merely claiming that you are one with that presence. You are one, as we talked about in our meditation. It flows through you. You are never separate from it. 3rd, we have it's called realization. And that's where you make a statement. What is it? Do you need something healed? Do you need a job interview to go well? Do you need the reservation to come through that you're looking for? Whatever it is that you would like to experience in your life, you state that in an affirmative way. You declare it affirmatively, just as Myrtle Fillmore would declare it affirmatively. And so we always state it in the present as if it's done. I now declare that I am successfully approved in this process. I now declare that I am whole, healthy, and complete. And then the 4th step for us is thanksgiving, gratitude. Just thank you, God. Thank you, life. Thank you for this truth, and I know it, and I accept it, and I know it's mine now. And finally, we just release it. We let it go. We do not keep tugging it along with us. We do not go into worry or manipulation. We trust, we speak, we let it go. It's the universe's job to figure out how to do it. It does it through that creative juju that we call the universal energy. So we just let it go. And then you're set up for a treatment. And we do a treatment, well, we always say, Holmes said, you treat until you get your reply. And when you're treating for someone else, if they're not well, you treat until they're well. So I will not take time this morning. I wanted to, but I'm going to say, I won't make you promise, but I hope that some of you, maybe even before you leave, maybe while you're downstairs in refreshments, take just a moment and put a declarative statement in there for you if you want to play with this. It's not that different than the affirmative prayer you do with unity. Put something in there that's important to you. Tuck it away. Declare it all when you get home. Maybe read it each morning or read it at night before you go to bed and see what happens. Okay? my final thing, and this is in the commonality, Centers for Spiritual Living and Unity, the mission and the vision statements. For religious science, which the centers now are known as Center for Spiritual Living. It's about providing spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. It's about awakening humanity to its spiritual magnificence and helping to create a world that works for everyone. And with Unity, it's about empowering through the courses, through the instruction, about liberating us from the ideas that are outdated, that do not work anymore, that were never real to begin with. It's about inspiring, embracing, and exploring. I would say that by and large, Unity and Science of Mind are way more alike than they are different. Some verbiage may be different. A lot of it isn't even different. Unity is a little more Bible-based, I believe. They do a lot more biblical core stuff in their works. But it's also looking at it in terms of consciousness, not literally, but figuratively, and where are the stories and where are the messages. But both of them, both of us, are filled with light and working from love and seeing others with respect and with dignity and knowing that they're in their special place right now on this earth. And if they're doing something that we don't get right now, we have to remember we're not in their shoes. We don't know what just happened to them. We don't know what's about to happen for them. We just know that God's in there. God's in there, whatever it looks like. So send a little love anyway. Okay? So I ask you to join me and just say this. There is one God, there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. And that life is my life now. Do you believe it? Yes. You're going to do it? Yes. You're going to live it? Yes. And so it is. Thank you.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.